It's been a week since Bethesda Game Studios shadow dropped Oblivion Remastered, and we have to talk about this launch. This game is doing a lot better than many people suspected, but at the same time, there are mounting complaints around the game. Even as some of the positive reviews are starting to roll in, some of the problems with Oblivion are showing more than ever, with many fans reporting visual bugs or even media outlets saying this game wasn't ready for release. But Bethesda has been quick to respond to all of that. Depending on platform, Oblivion has already gotten updates. It's actually a bit of a weird situation there, because certain other platforms have gotten no updates whatsoever. And we gotta talk about mods. What's possible, what's not, and what's coming in the future. Oblivion Remastered came out 7 days ago now, and in this past week we got a ton of data that basically forces us to acknowledge how insane of a launch this game just saw. After years of fans basically getting on their knees and begging, Bethesda has finally released a remaster of one of their games, and they did it in a super interesting way. They hired a third-party studio, used dual engines to really only have to remake the visuals of this game, and after all of that work was done, they just dropped it one day with no notice. And I think that Shadow Drop in particular really ended up benefiting Oblivion. The game eventually hit a peak of 216,000 players this Sunday on Steam, with Bethesda now reporting that 4 million people had played the remaster in its first 4 days from release. They posted this 4 million player number on Friday, while the Steam peak only hit on Sunday afternoon, which definitely makes me think the real number is now a lot closer to 5 million. And to put those numbers into context, Bethesda reported 6 million players for Starfield the day after its full release, which was kind of 6 days later because that game of course did have a early access window. Starfield was the biggest launch in Bethesda Game Studios history, so that means that an Oblivion remaster that was made by cheaper European labor is putting up numbers that are somewhat in conversation with Starfield. Like, the game almost certainly cost a fraction of the amount to make, but is hitting a somewhat similar player count. They're not quite on par. Starfield is definitely a bigger game, at least on release, but they're in the same ballpark. That is insane. And I honestly think a huge part of this is the shadow drop. We saw this crazy phenomena where a game release almost went viral. It was like the internet had to drop everything and pay attention to this one for a few days. If we look back at that leaked Bethesda roadmap from 2020, they forecasted the Oblivion remaster making $190 million in its release year. And as a nice point of comparison, Indiana Jones was forecasted to make even more at $230 million in its release year. Indiana Jones also hit 4 million players, but that wasn't reported until about 6 weeks after release. Technically, we don't know when Indy hit that 4 million number, but if it was in just days, I imagine we would have heard it sooner. Oblivion, we know for a fact, had the same number in just 4 days. And Oblivion was a shadow drop. There was no lead-up marketing, and of course, no ability to pre-order. To me, it really sounds like Oblivion is outselling Indiana Jones, and we already know Indiana Jones was such a success that Lucasfilm reached out about a sequel almost immediately. So while we obviously don't have any hard sales data here, based off all of these metrics, it really seems like Oblivion Remastered is massively overperforming right now. It's likely making more money than Bethesda forecasted, and just overall seems to be a massive hit. And I personally attribute at least part of that to the shadow drop. I saw so many people being so happy just to get their hands on the game, to the point where many said they weren't even going to play on Game Pass. They were going to spend the $50 to buy this at full price, because they appreciated the fact that the game was just here instantly. And you have to imagine this success means more shadow drops in the future, other companies taking lessons from this, more remasters for Bethesda games. Microsoft wants one of these right next to a new season of the Fallout TV show, almost certainly. And all of this went down even despite the fact that some feel like Oblivion Remastered wasn't even ready for release. In the weeks since release, Oblivion Remastered has been getting a ton of reviews, and while overall they have been great, 88% recommend it on OpenCritic while it sits at 82% positive reviews on Steam. It's one of those weird phenomena where, yeah, Oblivion is almost universally being praised, but it's also almost universally being critiqued. The game just has performance issues. A lot of people are more than happy to push through those and continue playing though. And thankfully, Bethesda has already started to address at least some of these. Something weird is going on with the updates to Oblivion Remastered. The game has received several updates depending on which platform you're on. PlayStation and Steam users just seem to have gotten nothing so far, so there hasn't been an update one way or another, while Game Pass and Xbox have actually gotten multiple updates, but at different points and even doing different things. So what's going on here? On Friday, some Oblivion players started to notice their game game was updated. This happened on both Xbox and for Microsoft Store players on PC, of which the vast majority of Microsoft Store players are likely playing on Game Pass. And Microsoft Store players got a real raw deal here. This update was supposed to address some cross-save issues with the Microsoft Store version of the game, but it accidentally removed the menu options for upscalers and frame generation. So you just no longer could select things like DLSS or FSR, as those choices were no longer available on your menu. And many players reported a massive FPS drop as those features were seemingly turned off now, which really sucks. You're going into the weekend, I'm sure many people just jumping into the game for the first time, and all of a sudden you just get a giant FPS cut for seemingly no reason, just a bug. But thankfully yesterday, Bethesda did restore that content in a hotfix for the Microsoft Store version, so everything should be good now. Although they do note that you may need to reselect your upscaler settings if they were disabled. But then separately, there was an Xbox patch that just is a legit update that brought changes and improvements to performance. Xbox technically got a quick patch on day one to address other issues, but then on Friday, a new 1.9GB update did ship for the game. And this is bringing some noticeable performance improvements. Digital Foundry found more than 10 FPS gains in some areas of the map, and just generally improved performance on Xbox thanks to patch optimizations. It's not like settings were turned down or anything like that, the game just is running a bit better after this update. Sadly, despite the overall higher FPS, stutters are still occurring, and even occurring in the exact same locations as before the patch, so the hitching or stuttering issue is certainly not resolved with this one. But it is a bit of a weird situation where, yeah, Xbox players, not even PC players, but just Xbox players, are now playing on a more updated version of the game that just gets more FPS. That same patch never came to PC or PS5. I have to imagine it's going to be coming at some point. It likely got rolled into a larger patch, the first real official patch that'll be coming for this game, hopefully coming later this week, but whenever it does come, I will have a video on it, so get subscribed for that. Because this game really does need patches on PC and PlayStation, and even more on Xbox. Digital Foundry described Oblivion Remastered on PC as one of the worst running games that specific reviewer had ever tested while working at Digital Foundry. Part of the problem being, this game just has issues regardless of platform. Digital Foundry was running the game on one of the best PCs money could buy at 1080p, while someone with that PC is likely mostly playing at 4K, and yet they would still receive gigantic hitches in gameplay. And the hitches and stutters are definitely a much larger issue with a game like Oblivion, because a lot of the gameplay is just running around in the open world, experiencing what there is to find. And as Digital Foundry concluded, there just isn't a fix right now. Even adjusting settings to their lowest like they did here, your FPS will improve a ton, but those stutters and hitches will remain. And of course, the game looks awful while you stutter through it anyway. Basically, there's no fix right now. We would need an update to fix this stuttering issue. But if you're interested, Digital Foundry does provide some graphic setting recommendations to maximize performance on PC, even despite the stuttering. I'll have a link to their video down below if you're interested. And it's not even like performance is the only issue facing this game right now. It definitely has problems beyond all of this. A variety of more minor bugs are around. Bethesda has been updating a bunch of their support articles with workarounds, and many obvious bugs will seemingly be patched in the first major update, which is a really good sign. But also, just as a whole, the game has a lot of issues with lighting. Its updated and overhauled lighting system looks good, but if you look a bit closer, it doesn't look quite as good. Consoles have a plethora of lighting issues right now, and things like ray tracing integration are just not great in this game. HDR isn't even a feature, and it's a 2025 remaster. Like, it's literally just a setting they could have turned on in Unreal Engine. And just generally, as modders have begun digging into this one, Oblivion Remastered's overhauled lighting is poorly optimized and just not super well implemented. Modders have done better themselves with Skyrim's overhauled lighting system, but thankfully more updates should be coming to Oblivion. Right now in Bethesda's Discord, they are actively soliciting feedback and suggestions around this game, while also pointing users to submit tickets with issues. This is a Discord channel that is actively being watched by some of the developers of the remaster, so it definitely seems like we'll be getting a fair amount of post-launch support. Many people suggesting things like change-ups to the difficulty modes, the addition of mod support, and potentially even a photo mode getting added. Right now, the modding situation with Oblivion Remastered is a bit complicated. Lots of mods from the original do work with this game. I have a video covering many of these. And while you can load Oblivion Remastered into an updated version of the creation kit, Oblivion's actual mod editor doesn't work, and as such, a lot is just restricted right now. Speaking with modders, many aspects of this game are currently obfuscated, and in turn, modding them is very difficult to impossible. Even just getting the game loaded into the SDK takes 600 gigabytes of hard drive space right now. It's pretty far from accessible and easy modding. Simple mods definitely are possible, but to get some of the more advanced stuff will require further tools, either from Bethesda or a a lot of time for the community to decode this game and build those tools out for themselves. A lot of early mod tool creation is just figuring out how the game works and where things are in the first place, and that obviously takes a while when you can't see much. Even as just a simple example, any mod adding text into the game right now will get a NL prefix for some reason, but nobody could figure out why. So right now modders are having to dig through the game's files to try and figure out what's going on. There are lists in the files that do mention mod tools, a potential construction set, which is the name of Oblivion's mod editor, could come, but at least as of right now, we just don't know. It's not like anything's concretely pointing towards, yes, this mod editor is coming one day. But with how much of a success Oblivion has been, I think Bethesda has a major incentive to get proper mod tools out, because that opens up the possibility to sell mods, just like they are with both Skyrim and Starfield. With how big of a release Oblivion Remastered was, and with how much money Bethesda is making from these paid mods, I just think this will happen. They have a lot of financial incentive to make sure modding is here. I think a lot of people just haven't realized how big creations have gotten, but whether you support them or not, they are bringing in a pretty penny for Bethesda right now, and I think they want paid mods in all of their future games as a result. Then taking feedback and kind of planning out future feature additions or new things to add to their game definitely makes me think that mod tools will come at some point. That is of course one of the #1 things being asked for right now. And if you are interested in more Oblivion updates and news, get subscribed. I'll be covering everything that happens around this title, but otherwise check out this video.